Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now we benchmarked the 8GB RX 570 a couple of months ago and came to the conclusion that it's still very solid for 1080p gaming. In today's one I wanted to see how well it fares at 1440p. I'm not expecting 60fps, especially not in those modern AAA titles, but can we at least get close? And if you don't mind playing with reduced settings and performance figures, does this make sense as a somewhat affordable 2560 by 1440 GPU? Let's find out. The average sold price of the last 10 fully working used or seller refurbished 8GB 570s was $108 on eBay in the US and £106 here in the UK. The price will of course vary on a model by model basis. The first game I tested exhibited some of the best results I saw today, at least in terms of an average. I've got the ASUS 570 paired with an i3 12300, which in most titles is sort of just sitting back and letting the card do most of the work. Battlefield at 1440p with the medium preset runs with over 60 FPS, 70 in fact. These figures were taken from the result of combining 3 team deathmatches across different maps. Each map performed slightly differently, but the performance remained solid throughout. Not to mention it still looks really good even with the middle of the road settings here. At the opposite end of the spectrum we have the worst performer from today's lineup, though in a way that's a positive thing because you know what to expect going forward. That is that none of the games fell below 40 FPS as far as an average is concerned. I played Cyberpunk for half an hour, mostly sticking to the downtown Night City area, though performance will pick up a bit in the Badlands or anywhere that has less going on. Elden Ring couldn't manage to hit the 60 FPS cap at 1440p medium, but it couldn't at low either, so I thought why not just stick with slightly higher settings. That's the thing too, we don't need the lowest settings in most of today's tests to get what I would call a playable frame rate though. If you did want a little bit more from this card, then you could of course turn things down further. Some games do have FSR support and dynamic resolution too, but that sort of defeats the object of the video, so I stuck with native 2560 by 1440 throughout. Fortnite also ran at medium, but due to the competitive nature of this one, I'd probably suggest going a bit lower for the sake of higher frame rates. It's not a necessity though, and medium with 100% 3D scaling and the epic view distance with TAA enabled gave us 87 FPS in return. The 0.1% low is looking a bit sad today, and even though the frame times do iron themselves out after a few games, I still got a little dip here and there. Nothing major though. This specific race in Forza Horizon 5 is quite intensive, so we're getting slightly lower frame rates than we would in other races or areas, ones that I've tested before. Even so, the 66 FPS average is still respectable, very much so. I would have been happy with 30 FPS here, to be honest, but it is nice to hit 60 in faster paced games like this one. Not too much of a surprising result considering Forza's excellent optimization. In GTA 5 I could have turned things way up, but at high with the detail sliders halfway, performance was more than good enough. MSAA was also disabled, but FXAA was turned on, and visually the game still looks pretty good. I think you probably knew this one would run well, but it's always nice to include it in the benchmarks anyway. The frame times were good as well. Marvel's Spider-Man is up next. I'm having an absolute blast with this one. I spend most of the time just swinging around the city. I reloaded an older save here to give you an example of that. I'm using medium, and 1440p actually seems to iron out some of the frame time issues that I see at 1080p, perhaps because the CPU is doing less work with this card at this resolution. From what I've tested, this is quite a processor intensive title. The lower settings do help as well. Medium was my choice here with ambient occlusion disabled because I found this to have the biggest impact on frame rates, knocking off about 10% of performance. In this case about 4 to 5 FPS. Low or very low would of course be better, but medium gives us nice performance and nice visuals, though that statement is debatable depending on who's playing or watching. Red Dead Redemption 2 with console quality settings will offer a better than console experience as far as frame rate is concerned. 46 FPS on average here, at 1440p is very nice. As I said before, 1080p is the way to go with the 570, be it the 4 or 8 gig card, but it's nice to know we can push it a bit further, especially if we aren't trying to target 60 FPS or beyond. Finally, it's Saints Row 2022. Say what you will about this game, but I'm finding it quite fun so far. Driving down desert roads in a camper van is quite therapeutic until we make our way into the city and start blasting anyone and anything that goes by. 1440p with the low preset will give us between 40 and 60 FPS most of the time, with the average settling on 55 after half an hour of play, mostly thanks to the slightly emptier areas that I spent a lot of time driving around. This is with DX12 mode, which generally seems to offer better performance with this card. So there we go, the RX 570 is still very much a 1080p GPU in 2022, but it can be pushed to 1440p and still output some respectable frame rates at this higher resolution. If you aren't fussed about 60 FPS, then the extra picture clarity might be welcome, but bear in mind lower visual quality options may need to be utilised too. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this one, leave a like, leave a dislike if you didn't. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Let me know what you think of this card down below in the comments and what you thought of the performance you saw today. And with all that said, hopefully I'll see all of you in the next one.